Hello and welcome back for Python Module 3. So in this module what we're going to learn how to do is to create a class, create override functions of that class, and then create our own public methods of the class. Also learn how to define some class instance variables. So what I've done here is I've created a class called animal, and then I have docstring that says this is a simple class for animals. And then I have a special function here with a double underscore and then init, then another double underscore. This is essentially how you use a default or override the constructor for a class. So if you wanted to create another class of box, and then you wanted to define a constructor for the box, you would use the double underscore inits and then self, because it's a class, it always accepts an argument as itself to the first parameter. And then our box is going to have a length and a width, and then we're going to define some instance variables for our box. I'm going to set the self length to the parameter of the length that was passed, and the width to the width that was passed. And that's all it takes really to define a constructor for your object. So I've done that with animal, we just did it with a box. And then we're going to override another function in our class called stir. And the stir function is another special function. It's got the double underscores, so that's how we know we're overriding something. And stir is the function that gets called whenever you print an object. So whenever you load your Python interpreter here and you just want to say print 5, behind the scenes Python is really calling the .stir function on 5, like so. Well, let's try a different. There we go. It's calling the stir function, passing it 5. So if we say the stir of 5 again, should just print out the 5. But so you can do the same thing for objects. So what we've done here is we have an animal object, and we're saying whenever you print out the animal object as a string, this is the function that I really want you to call. Otherwise, if you don't define this, and let's go back over to our interpreter here, and we're just going to define a class in the interpreter called animal, or box. We'll just stick with the box thing. And our box is just going to have the same init function. And it's going to take self, height, width, and then we're going to say self dot equals height, and self dot width equals width. We're going to hit enter again, and now we should be able to reference a box class. So I just say b equals box, and I'm going to give it a height and a width, 4 and 5. So now when I call b, and this is just printing out b, as you can see it prints out some weird, meta type variables for our box. So it says box is within the scope of main, it's an object, and here's a pointer to its location. Oddly enough, that doesn't tell us anything about our box. So what we're going to need to do is go into our box object and define this string method. So let's just go back into our box here, and we're gonna def string on it this time. It's gonna take self again, and this time what we're gonna do is return height, and we're gonna do a %d, width, %d, and then we're going to make sure that it gets the self.height dot and self.width. So now, when I call B, well, I might have to make a new B. Let's try that again. Let's make a new box. So apparently, I have overwritten the entire box. No big deal. What I'll do is just use my class here as an example. And I'll paste my class in. So now I can make an animal. So I'm going to say animal equals animal. And I'm going to call it big scary dog. Okay. So now instead of printing out the animal and the animal is now our box, it's not going to print out the weird metadata associated with our box or our animal. It's going to actually print out that string function that we've defined. So it says, hi, my name is Big Scary Dog, which is what I defined my string function to be. So that's the basics on overriding that string function and declaring a default initializer in Python. So all I've done here is I've made a main function, creates two instances of my animal and prints them out. So whenever I run this, it just says, hi, my name is Gideon, hi, my name is Kira. It's exactly what we wanted. But for your assignment, what I'm going to have you do is you're going to make a student object. So this class is going to be a student. You're going to make a default initializer that accepts two parameters. One of them is going to be the student's name, and the other one is going to be an array. The array is going to be the current grades for the student. And so you're going to make some instance variables to save the name and save the array of the grades. And then whenever you print out the student, I want it to print out the student's name only. Then we're going to define some more public methods for the class. You're going to define a .average. So if we were doing it in here, it would look something like this. We would def average, and it always takes self as an argument. And what you would do is you would iterate through the grades, calculate the average, and print the average from that function. Pretty easy. And then I'm also going to ask you to define two other functions. One of them is going to be a min, and the other one's going to be a max. And I want you guys to print out the name of the assignment of the minimum score and the name of the assignment of the maximum score. And you will understand more once I put the sample files up. So what we're going to be doing is having a name with a grade and a name with the student's name. And so your assignments are going to have names and your grades are going to have names. Or your assignments are going to have names and the grades will be a numeric value. We're going to stick with integers for now to keep life simple. I will post the assignment up in a text format so you can read it, but that's all you're going to need to do for Module 3.